Hello, welcome to another episode of Constitutionalist Podcast. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard. That's L-E-N-A-R-D. It looks French. It's not. It's Leonard without an O. Thank you for tuning in. As Graham Norton used to say on his show, let's get on with the show! Special segment for February and March midweek drops. Normally Saturday monologues and normally a guest appearance on a Wednesday. February and March, 2 a week, Tuesday and Thursdays, in order to get caught up on some interviews that have been stacking up. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. What are we up to? 3 million? No, we're close to that. But only in my third season. Any rate, Saturday monologues, midweek guest drops. I don't number them all the same. My Saturday monologues are a numbered show, and my weekday drops are specials, so separate numbering systems. Anyway, at any rate, whatever. Joining me today now is Leah Crest, and no, not heir to the toothpaste clan. There's an H in there, Chrest, and she was explaining a former husband last name. So, right. So what was the maiden name?
The maiden name was Boschert, which was a German name and much harder to spell.
Okay, so from Leah's bio, I got believer that knowing we are in God changes everything. Author of It's Okay to Be Okay, Christian Grief Recovery, At the Edge of the Jordan, narrative fiction on NDEs, near-death experiences. Had a couple shows on that, so we'll get into that. Christian meditation teacher. Had a couple shows on meditation. Christian mother. But before we get into any and all of that, let's back this truck up, right? Beep, beep, beep. Where were you born and raised, and where are you now? And, any significant places you've been in between and whatnot?
Yeah, sure. So I am born and raised in Maryland and still there. I haven't traveled much beyond that state. It's got oceans, it's got mountains, it's got the rolling countryside, it got big cities, you got farms, you got everything, in my opinion. And what's wonderful about Maryland is that there aren't a lot of natural disasters. And it's a very unique state. There's not a lot of tornadoes. Hurricanes we get are very mild. No earthquakes beyond little tremors. I mean, it's just pretty safe. It's a really safe place to live.
No,
and you have everything.
Hey, that sounds good. Yeah, I mean, Michigan, we have tornadoes. We have all the lakes. We have floods all the time. So, yeah, the last real major hurricane that went up that way was in 1908 that went, wreaked havoc in New York. But in 1908, there wasn't really a whole lot there in 1908. And you probably felt that in Maryland too, or not you, who might have been there.
I mean, I didn't realize I was showing my age that much, Joseph.
Yeah. Yeah, pardon. Yeah. Your great-grandmother might have known.
Correct.
So indeed, at any rate, let's just tackle them in order. Believer that knowing we are in God changes everything. I like that. Have at it.
Yeah, so if you have a true faith, and I would say that I think we all have to arrive at that in our own way, because we can be taught endlessly.
Free will, self-realization. You can't force someone to be a Christian at the barrel of a gun, or it's not real.
Even if you come to believe for whatever reason, you have to really deeply believe, to know it's true at the bottom of your heart. That takes time for most people. I mean, some people are just born with that kind of, knowing. And other people, like, I mean, I spent most of my childhood and young adulthood believing because that's what my parents believe. It's what my culture believed, but I didn't believe it for myself. I followed along. I got confirmed when I was 13, and I was in a Christian Bible study and went to church every Sunday, but I didn't have that unshakable confidence,
Right. That was
until life
more or
happened.
less nurture and the family. It was part of the family structure, part of just
Right.
what the family did. And until you yourself, John, born again, our confirmation as Catholics are supposed to be that born again, where we affirm and accept our faith and welcome in Jesus ourselves. But even then, as you're alluding, at that age, it's still almost kind of just going through motions.
Yes, and even if like I genuinely wanted to go through the process and I did claim it as my own, but there's still that, well, I think it's real, but how do I know? And I think that's something that if you are on the fence, it's a prayer worth making. If you pray from the bottom of your heart, God, help me to know this is true. Help me to have that relationship with you. That's a prayer God always answers. It might take longer than you think because God's timeline is not our own. But if you genuinely are seeking, right, God will be there. And so
And
that
it
was
may
kind of my
not
journey.
come in the form of the sky opening, the clouds parting, and literal beams coming down and telepathically telling you something, right?
Right.
It, we have to want to see it and be open to
Yes.
seeing it and wanting to receive it and noticing the signs and miracles and not just dismissing them.
Exactly. Yes. You have to have ears to hear, eyes to see, and ears to hear, as Jesus says. And so, with that said, I mean, I went through that journey in my late 20s, early 30s, where I went from doubting to believer. And for me, it was reading near-death experiences. That's what God led me to. And, reading those, I read, 500 of them. I read more than that, but about when I wrote the book on it, I read about 500. And since then, probably another 100, 150. But, at a much slower clip. But that's what I just was, to me, undeniable. When I started reading these and seeing the theme of God's love over and over and over again. And then I had some really hard experiences to write off as coincidence in the years that followed that really
Mm,
cemented it for me. I never had a near-death experience myself, but I had what would be called spiritually transformative experiences. So, I didn't leave my body, nothing like that, but I definitely have had experiences that cannot be explained otherwise.
yeah. Oh, I
Um,
hear you.
yeah,
I went through that when I was younger, but yes, I do not have any recollection of it. But indeed, a car accident I passed was brought back. I don't remember any lights or visits or anything, but I know I was on the other side for a period of time and brought back. And even I've had atheist Liz Enton on the show discussing afterlife from a non-believer standpoint. So,
hmm,
that was a really interesting discussion. And as I think season one early on, people could check back in the catalog on that. And I've had others that have talked NDEs. It is really interesting how much of that's chemical, how much of that is spiritual, how it's like
right.
alien visits. Well, are you preconditioned to think you see an alien that would look like that and it's the mind playing tricks? Or we can't really fully ever truly know.
I hear you on that. So my late husband, at the time that I was writing the book, he did not believe in them at all. And we would have debates on it. And, I understand that from a scientific perspective. You can do things with the brain, like put signals into the brain and create an out-of-body experience. You can do that. So I'm not a denier of the
That's
scientific
kind
basis.
of a difference than actual death, though. Like, right?
Absolutely.
What are they? I can't remember the term, but I myself, when I was younger, had that psychotic, I mean psychic, but pun intended, pun intended. People do call me psychotic, and they may not entirely be wrong. But no, I used to have that psychic ability to run in the family, the ability to astral projection, to
Oh,
leave
wow.
the body and go somewhere else. That's different than a near death experience. I've
Correct.
experienced the astral projection myself, and I know it was real and not tricks of dreams because as I get older later in life, I would be to those places I visited and know those places without ever physically having been there before.
And I think that's exactly what you're getting at. And that's kind of to me the proof that our consciousness is not just in this body. It's something beyond that. And to me, that's proof of God, something beyond us. And NDEs are similar in that these people, when they leave their bodies, they see and experience
And
things
again, near
that they
death
can't.
experiences, NDEs, near death experiences.
Right. Yep. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. But then the other piece that really strengthened my faith was just the conviction of when these people came back, the conviction they had about the loving creator, the conviction they had about a lot of other aspects. And again,
Not
I'll save it,
all,
save that for
not
the book.
yeah, not
But
all go that way. Like one I had on had really traumatic NDE. It was not love and rainbows and lollipops. So,
right, and I do in my book I address that. So for sure, there's a percentage. I think it's like under 10%, but there is a percent that do experience that, and some of them experience both. You start off in the hellish, and then you cry for help and get pulled out. Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely. I mean, I say read and explore for yourself. But for me, for someone who was so on the fence about God's existence, to have that read these and see, even in the hellish ones, there is a theme that kind of comes through that we aren't just this. This is not the end. There's something
Mhm.
beyond this. Our consciousness goes beyond. And what we do here, there's a purpose to our life. There is a deep rooted purpose, and we are cared for. Even like I personally, I believe that a hell exists, but it's only if we move away from love and we're in fear. If we are in a place of
Yeah,
love and not of fear, we go to the love.
right,
That's what, and we do create our own realities with the help of God. We are creating our experience on earth with
right.
God's guidance.
I talk about the Bible, the whole Bible in full context, but we are but children to what God is. God doesn't owe us all the answers. Exclusion does not mean preclusion. A reincarnation is not precluded. So to poo poo that of the other belief systems is wrong-headed in my opinion because we are one continuous soul. The Bible doesn't say that
Mm-hmm.
then potentially we can come back several times, to be given another chance on this planet to prove our soul's worth into the book of life.
Oh, I
In
love
our
that.
right in our measurements, yeah, I go into the book of life, try to and tie that back to Osiris and the feather and the soul
Oh
balance.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Egypt mythology, but it doesn't say there's no such thing as reincarnation. It doesn't exclude it from a potential. So perhaps some do go through that. It's one soul. It could be multiple lives physical on this plane, but one soul overall life is what is measured in the book of life for entry into heaven. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So when people, with Christians who are struggling with that, and my book talks heavily about reincarnation because even though I go from a Christian lens, I
See,
went by evidence.
I had no idea, and we just happened to be there at the same. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that that's why I self-published was because I didn't want that taken out. Because I'm going evidence-based And I would say, like, out of the ones that mention reincarnation or not, that are have enough, because some NDEs you walk, you go across, you see a light, you come back, that's it. But those that are more extensive, I would say 70 to
That could
75%,
be purely chemical.
and that could be the
Yeah.
70 to 75% that go beyond that, where they really truly have an experience of the heavenly realms. Like I said, they come back and they say reincarnation is real, maybe even higher than that. And so it really is hard to dismiss that. So when I talk to Christians about that who are on the fence about it, this is how I talk about it. I say, number one, regardless of how you think about it, do you believe that we're done growing when you die? Because I gotta say, I sure hope not. I know that God wants us to perfect us, right? And so whether we grow more in another lifetime or we grow more on the other side, we continue to grow. Our souls continue to become closer to Christ, and so that is true regardless. And then the second piece
Oh, did
is
did you say regardless? I hope you didn't say irregardless
no,
there.
regardless,
Oh, okay.
regardless, yeah.
I thought you said it because some people their heads will blow up, right? They go nuts with people. I don't care. I'll do it to tweak people and say irregardless, just to,
No, no, no.
knowing it's not correct, but I know it will upset people, so I'll do it just to piss them off. But
Oh, got you. No, I try not to ruffle any feathers. And then the second piece is about the nature of these reincarnation experiences. So I personally believe that our soul does have multiple lifetimes. For me, it helps me to be patient because when with myself and also other people, because when you walk around and you see a lot of crazy things happening, you can think, you know what, maybe this is their first time around. Maybe they're in kindergarten and I'm in third grade. Can I be a little bit more patient with the fact that
I
this
like
may not
that.
be.
Yeah. They're
So that's
human. Yeah, they're human reality. They may not have a whole lot of wisdom even yet. And as well as, right, because old souls.
right.
What explains that? Indeed, if
Exactly.
maybe your soul has been through a few physical lifetimes, and therefore, 10-year-olds can be so wise beyond their years. Maybe that's coming from their old soul.
Exactly. And even if you discount that and you say, no, I don't believe that's true, that's fair. What they may have been experiencing in near-death experiences is just the unity, because we all have the consciousness of God is all inclusive. And so it is possible, in my opinion, that when souls cross over, that they experience the collective consciousness, which includes other people's lifetimes.
Oh,
And maybe
even
what
not,
they're
yeah,
experiencing is other people's. Potentially.
even
I'm not ruling it out.
yeah, even non-believers, even atheists, right, believe in the collective conscious singularity concept, but separate
Hmm.
that from the God experience. I of course, think it's one and the same. They're
It
just trying,
is. It's
you
in my
know.
opinion, it is.
Yeah, atheism to me is indeed a religion of itself. It's just
Yes.
them wanting to claim to be God and no higher authority, potentially no rules, no nothing on them. Anything
Mm.
goes. But anyway, that's off the beaten path too. So let's kind of move on to. We've already addressed this a little. Author of It's Okay to Be Okay. What was the genesis of that book?
So, my first husband, the one last name Crest, like the toothpaste,
But with
he
an H in there, yes.
with an H, so you can find me online. You can look up with an
Yes.
H, Crest, Leah, Leah, and then Crest with an H. Lots of H's in there.
Yeah,
Um,
not like Princess Leia. Leah, there is an H on the end, yes.
hmm. That's right. My dad claims I was named after Princess Leia. I said, honey, or I said, Dad, that's not honey. I said, Dad, that's not how you spell it. So I don't think that was right, but that's okay. I get called Leia too sometimes, and I'm cool with it. But so my first husband passed away when about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, and so my faith had solidified extensively, very much, very solid prior to his passing, and I had even had I wouldn't call it a vision. Again, a spiritually transformative experience. I can't explain it any other way. I was out on a dog walk and I felt this deep peace come over me. I was told that my husband was going to die. And I was told not exactly when, but I was told within while my children were still young, which kind of limited to the next couple years. And 9 months later, he passed. And
Mm.
it was sort of expected, unexpected, because even though was in denial about like, no, this isn't happening, and pushing back on it, being told that and being held in this love where I was told it was the best for everyone involved, that everything was going to be fine. And of course, I fought back. And as I was going on this walk and feeling this blanket of love, I kept thinking and saying to, my angels, my guides, however you want to define that, the Holy Spirit, no. And is there anything I can do to prevent this? What can I do? And the answer was stop. You can't. It's happening. Accept it.
Mm.
And so I got to the point where I just internally, even if it was subconsciously, on the subconscious level, was preparing and figuring out what I was going to do without him when, if it happened. So
Yeah.
it didn't throw me as much as it could have otherwise. And I was able to, mother through it and work, still go to work and all that. But the grief, I think my faith and having been told ahead of time and then have it happen, it was just kind of like, wow, God's got me. He told me it was going to be the best thing for everybody involved. Can I just trust this? Can I trust that it's the best thing even for my husband? Like, I couldn't see it, but maybe I don't understand everything. I don't understand God's plan. Can I
Yeah.
just let this
Yeah.
go?
Yeah. And sometimes, in this case, it sure sounds like it was part of God's will and God's plan. And again, God can turn bad things into good. And sometimes bad things happen to good people, and it's not all even part of God's plan, but in post, God can turn it into good. That's not where I thought that story was going to go. And because what popped into my mind was I thought you were going to a visitation after death. Well, and I have one of those
Mm-mm.
experiences. I,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
when my grandfather was older and dying and in the hospital, and I needed to work midnight shift for whatever reason. And indeed, at 3 in the morning, he visited me. I knew he passed. I called my mother, woke her up. Grandpa's passed. Your dad has passed. And sure enough, check with the hospital. Yeah, he's passed. So, whole lot of
Not
things that just can't be explained as uh,
right.
coincidentally. Oh, I thought it, so I think it happened, but no, it didn't really. No, because
Yeah.
I'm not. You're not. We're not all the only ones with that story. There are too many stories for those to be happenstantial, coincidental things.
And it's interesting how, I think our world is, I don't even know how to describe it. The consciousness of the souls who are here right now is elevating. That's the best way I can describe it. That the souls here and whatever, but I think we are becoming more Christ-like, very, very slowly. I think there's still some that aren't, but I think there's more of these
Oh,
experiences happening.
far too many that aren't. Yeah.
But there's a lot more. I feel like since I was a child to now, it's so much more accepted for us to have this conversation, Joseph. It's so much more accepted than it would have been 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, and
Um,
especially a couple hundred years ago.
oh
Even
my
though
gosh, yeah, you'd be
couple
burned.
hundred, yeah, well, a couple hundred years ago, in a way, they were far more religious and in the faith than we are now. But
Right.
as you said, yeah, if I would have said that story about my grandfather in Salem, I'd have been burned as a witch.
Right, exactly. And so these things are much more prevalent. I joke with my children, my two boys, because we all have different. I joke that it's like Encanto. Have you ever seen the movie Encanto or Encanto? I don't know.
Oh,
It's a
yes.
kids Disney movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. The Mexican Day of Death, or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, I
And
remember that. I
and
liked it.
every member of that family had a different gift. But they were all united. And I said our family is kind of that way. And so when you said you saw, was it your dad or your grandfather
Grandfather,
after
yeah. Oh, Day of the Dead.
grandfather?
The Mexican thing is the Day of the Dead celebration.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So when you saw your grandfather, I've never seen anyone or anything in the spiritual side. I have dreams, I have deep experiences like knowings, but no seeing. My oldest son sees everything. He can be taking a
Mm.
walk and be like, there's this over there, there's that over there, this is behind me, there's my
I
dad,
think
there's my grandfather.
when we're
Like,
young, when we're younger, we're not ingrained in this know, the reality of the here and now when you're not, and I think most people have psychic abilities or ability to see beyond, and it's beaten out of us. Uh, when I
potentially.
was younger, I saw my great grandfather in my parents' basement as a child. I hated to go down there. I knew there was a ghost down there. Decades later, finally figured it out when seeing an old picture of great grandpa and his
Wow.
bowler hat and the mustache. That's who I kept seeing as a child. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why great grandpa would be in mom and dad's basement had nothing to do with that land or property, obviously, long past before it was ever developed, but yet there he was.
And that's cool. Yeah, I believe everything you say and my son says. He's almost 15 now. He lost the ability for about 4 or 5 years, and then it came back, and after he hit,
Mm.
which is interesting. And then my youngest son, he's a sixth grader now, and his has started to pick up a little bit, but his is totally different. For him, he dreams things, and then it's weird nuance things, like eating a pancake and saying one particular phrase. And he's like, "Mom, I dreamed that last night and it's happening." These little weird things. He's like,
Yeah.
and I said,
Oh,
"Sweetie, I believe you. I believe you because it's like in Kanto, like everybody's
I,
got a different gift."
again, growing up, yeah, my mother, on my mother's side of the family, there's always been a degree of psychic abilities. And yes, I've, too, not just the astral projections, but also being places in dreams. And indeed, that extreme case of deja vu. I've been here, and it isn't deja vu because I could specifically remember I dreamt it. this
Hmm.
isn't, this is different. I understand deja vu, and sometimes it is that. So, yeah, and, some hearing all this for the first time might be thinking I'm crazy and you're crazy, but your kids are crazy.
And people do, and it's interesting. What I guess what I would say as a response to any of that, and it's like whatever. I used to think my grandfather when he would tell me the things that he had seen and done, because he had disabilities too. I really did think he was hitting the loony bin. I really did
Hitting
until
the
I had
sauce,
my own
maybe.
experiences. But you know what the test though was for me, and this is where it gets to the important stuff. It was his character. Because if you have psychic abilities don't matter. If you go back to the Paul's letters, right? In Paul's words, you could have all these gifts, but if you don't have love, you have nothing. And so as I was, whatever the word, however you want to talk about this awakening of the soul to the reality of God and to my own purpose in this life. As that happened, I had multiple mentors talk to me, and one in particular said, Leah, do not get stuck on the flashy things because the flashy things don't matter. They look cool, they look interesting, they draw your attention. Oh,
Oh,
I want to
and
have that experience or
we
this
all
experience.
and even physical, like, the Bible doesn't say the love of money or uh, money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say that. It says the love of money. It's We're
Yes.
human. To want to have and acquire nice things isn't the sin. We all want that. It's getting caught up in it all and craving more and more of it and allowing jealousy of what others might have and wanting to covet that then becomes the major sin. It's all complicated. I say all the time the context of the Bible. You can't just pick one scripture and the whole thing adds additional context. And we've already talked more or less NDEs, but the book on that itself is Edge of the Jordan.
At the edge of the Jordan River, right? And when you cross over the
Yes.
Jordan, yes.
Yeah, or the river Styx. Yeah.
Well, I was keeping it
Yeah.
Christian, but you know,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
all have rivers in there in our
Yeah. Yeah.
mythologies.
Well, again, I don't want to poo-poo the other face. I'm saying the concepts
Yes,
overall, yes.
exactly. No, it is. It's a similar context. It's just rivers, you know. It's crossing the river.
and oh, and speaking of the river, I'm here in Detroit, so it's
Okay.
the Detroit River. Anyway, whatever, just the way my idiotic OCD brain works. Christian meditation teacher.
Well, that ties right into what we were talking about because I was talking about love and being centered in love, and you can go after all the flashy stuff. And when you talk about spirituality, it is so easy to either judge or be attracted to these so-called abilities, these psychic things, these experiences. And in the end, I could give up every single one that I have. I do not care about them. They are, as Paul says, this, I don't care. It's nothing compared to the love of Christ. Christian meditation, all that is being able to sit and just be in the love of God. That's really all it is. And so I talk about when we pray, that's one side of the conversation, right? You're talking to God or at God, depending on your prayer practice. But rarely do we
Right.
sit and listen and have the
But
other side of the conversation.
that brings to mind though, and I got to interject. Well,
Go for
let
it.
me back up. So two things, because I don't think I've made that thought proper. Right? The Bible doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money that's, and then all
Mm-hmm.
those other things and being caught up in the trappings. And the other thing, kind of what you're referring to, you can pray at God. You may not always get an answer. As the Garth Brooks song says, it doesn't mean he doesn't care. Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers,
Mm-hmm.
right? There might be something better planned for me down the road. I'm not getting what I'd like to have in this situation, like, whatever. In the case of the song, it was his old flame, as he says in the song, right? Had he
Mm-hmm.
not gone through that relationship and it fell apart or it just didn't happen, he wouldn't have then met the person he's with now.
Right. Exactly. For sure. That sense of being able to speak your mind to God, to have that full, like David does in the Psalms, transparency, full reality, authenticity is the word I was looking for. You're authentic with God, but then you shut up and you stop and you go into your heart. You let your attention rest in your heart and you just wait. And if you're doing this for the first time, it's going to be really weird because you're not used to sitting and just listening. But eventually it becomes, after I've done it for, years now, probably 8 years, maybe longer. But it's like my favorite time of the day. And that's the one thing, you could take anything from me, literally anything or anyone out of my life. I trust God with everyone and everything. I'd be fine. My health, whatever. Take it if you need to, God. Do not take me from your presence. Because the feeling of what I feel in meditation, when I just feel and just held in that love, and I never knew I could experience that. That's that
Mm.
part of it's okay to be okay. When you are in that, it doesn't matter what's going on around you, you're okay because you're held. You're held in that love. And that's what meditation does. And the difference between Christian meditation and other kinds of meditation, which are also wonderful, I'm not throwing stones.
Right.
But
Well, I
the,
had someone on talking meditation, and of course, what comes to mind? Om Buddhism,
right.
right?
Yes.
You don't poo-poo it just because your immediate thought goes to Buddhism. That as
Right.
a tenet of philosophy versus Buddhism as a faith is very valid and good.
Yes, absolutely. And although typically more Buddhist meditation, from my understanding, and when I did practice for a while, is more a clearing of the mind, a stilling of the mind. And although that tends to happen in Christian meditation, the focus is on the heart. And so instead of focusing here and watching the thoughts pass by like clouds, which is a beautiful practice. It's a beautiful practice. I highly recommend that too. I rest in my heart and I just focus on the love of God in my heart. It's a little different. And for me, I prefer it. I like sitting,
Yeah.
basking in love. I think it's wonderful.
Well,
And then you can pray from that space too.
Yeah. And I can never, my audience knows I can never pass on the lame puns and whatnot. If I did meditation of the heart, I might start thinking of cows or pigs because I had TAVR heart valve replacement. So I've got pig or cow parts in my heart. My aortic valve had to be replaced.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
You never know
again,
what might happen.
Yeah, the OCD brain just, immediately goes to these stupid places. Anyway, thank you, Leah, not Leah, Crest, but with an H in there. Your name is a mess. Yeah. Leah Crest for joining today. It was a great conversation. Thank you. Take care. God bless.
Thank you.
Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help.
Thank you for having tuned into another Constitutionalist Podcast show. I really appreciate that you stopped by. Again, please like, share, subscribe. We need you to help spread the Constitutionalist movement. Thank you again. Take care. God bless. Love you all.